evening. You're watching Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Jose Luis Jimenez.
And I'm Ben Mendez.
We actually are going to get right into the show today. We have our guest with us right now, as you can see here at Houston Media Source. We'll start out here on my left. Can you introduce yourself?
Jeffrey Boney, the Houston Forward Times Associate Editor.
Stace?
Stace Medellin, Latinos United, Latinos Engaged United Voting.
And Rob Arteaga, psychotherapist.
Otherwise known as Dr. Feelgood.
Dr. Feelgood. Dr. What the heck? No, I'm just kidding. If y'all haven't seen the show, I invite you to go to our YouTube page and watch some of our previous shows. We did a show previously about being faithful, I think it was, or which one?
Modern Day Machista.
Modern Day Machistas, and that was the most quietest we have ever been on any show ever. So, on that note, let's talk about what's going on out there. Let's talk about current events. Ben, any good current events?
Today was Carol Alvarado's official announcement for the Senate race. As you all know, Senator Mario Gallegos passed away, and he won his election on election day. And now the governor is going to have to call a special election. And as a result of that, you have two candidates that pretty much have announced. One is Carol Alvarado, who's the state representative for the southeast part of town. And then you have the former Harris County Commissioner, Sylvia Garcia. There's probably going to be a few others that join in. I'm assuming that the former candidate on the Republican side, Mr. Bray, will also jump in.
Yeah, he actually already has.
He has announced.
He has announced, yes.
Okay, so officially we have 3 candidates, and I foresee at least a couple more. So the governor has not set the date for the election. So it's going to be a heated battle, though. I mean, we're talking about some veteran politicians, 2 of them especially, that are going to be head-to-head for the first time.
Well, I saw a press release that came out from Sylvia Garcia here recently, along with several emails from Carol Alvarado announcing, and I was surprised to see Jessica Farrar's name actually quoted in the press release for Sylvia Garcia, whom I thought was probably going to throw her name in the hat for that race as well.
Well, I'm actually kind of, I'm looking forward to see what actually happens, but I personally think it's a little bit too soon or too close to the election happening and the passing of the senator. I was just hoping they would at least wait till the New Year passed or find out what actually was going to happen. But I guess that's politics. Stace, what do you think?
I think it's a good time for a special election to happen after this last election. A lot of positive things coming out about the Latino vote. This Senate District 6 definitely impacts the Latino community. And I think it would be a good test to see, let's see how far we can take the Latino vote. I mean, as far as when you have Latino candidates running, I think it increases interest, it increases enthusiasm. And again, right with the candidates we have right now, with Carol Alvarado and with Sylvia Garcia, you're talking about 2 good campaigners, 2 excellent fundraisers. They're going to have the resources they need to run pretty strong campaigns. So. It's right. You're very right in what you say that it will be an exciting race.
So who's going to win the race?
I think honestly, I think it's too early to tell. I mean, right now, I think everybody's just hearing about who's going to be staffing the campaigns, and we haven't really heard strategy and the number of doors that are going to be knocked on and who's going to be called, but. Right now, I know Sylvia Garcia has a lot of advantages on the money side, as being the previous county commissioner in the area. She represented a lot of the area. Obviously, Carol Alvarado having represented as a city council member and as now as a state representative. They both have their strong points from the get-go.
Do you think it's going to be a positive campaign throughout?
I surely hope so, for the sake of the future senator. Because the last thing that we need is division amongst our leaders. Mm-hmm. What I found very interesting was that we had all the state reps endorse Sylvia, and it's in the Houston Chronicle, including Garnett Coleman, which was a surprise to me anyway. So it'll be interesting to see who jumps on Carol's side, and as far as future endorsements as well. We know that we have some people that are on the fence because they don't want to really get involved. They don't want to make enemies. Perfect example is some of the senators that are going to be colleagues of the new senator. So they're kind of taking a wait-and-see approach.
You mentioned the momentum of the Latino vote. I was listening to some of the difficulties that politicians and other people in just in the industry as in general are having to reach the Latino voter. I think that back in the day, it was easier to reach us because they could hit like the Tejano stations or Spanish TV, and now there's several generations of us here. How do you think that Obama was able to be successful with specifically Latinos this time?
I mean, especially in the battleground states, Obama was very successful. Here in Texas, the latest polling information that I've gotten is that Obama took 70% of the vote. And Obama had a very scientific campaign. I mean, it was very science, very numbers driven, and using micro-targeting, socioeconomic things, what people are buying, you know, that sort of data. And he was able just to target perfectly. A lot of the local campaigns don't have the resources to do that. I mean, I heard that the computer staff that he had was 5 times larger than he had in 2008. And so again, the resources aren't there for that sort of thing, but we can look at what some of our local candidates did, like Sheriff Adrian Garcia, who got reelected. He got 611,000 votes. And a lot of it was Latinos coming out to vote, and a lot of it was also crossover appeal that he had from the Republicans that liked him. So
he brings up a good point. In this race, which is it's rare that you're going to have Republicans voting in this race that can vote for a Democrat, because it's a special election. You don't have the primary, like you don't have the Democratic primary and the Republican primary. It's one big primary, basically.
They will not have a label next to their name.
Exactly. No Republican or Democrat will be labeled. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens as a result of that.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think that money is going to be the biggest factor in this campaign, or grassroots who can get?
There's no question about it. Money is a big factor. But it's also the person that has the most grassroots support is going to be a player. And Carol definitely has grassroots. No question about it. And Sylvia definitely has money. So it's going to be a battle of the two, basically.
Do you think that throwing a Republican supported by some other candidate or some other elected official would make a difference in the race, or do you think it's pretty much those two horses?
Well, there's rumors, and you know, I don't know how far this will go. There's a rumor of Rick Noriega perhaps running in this race, and I will tell you, if Rick runs in this race, that's a monkey wrench in the whole deal, because Rick will definitely pull away some of those voters for Sylvia and Carol.
Well, Rick has name recognition and a lot of history, and as a veteran, you know, that's going to pull a lot of the support, you know, and really, you know, it's going to, I'd be hard pressed to figure out who I'd vote for after that.
But you don't believe that this vote would, or this race would bring some sort of divisions in the Latino community?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, you're already seeing people line up whose side they're going to be. Of course, you're going to have those that don't know the politics, and they're just going to take a wait-and-see approach.
But we've also seen that they've come together. I've seen Sylvia Garcia and Carol Alvarado come together to support great candidates like Juliet Stepech, who's on the school board. Recently, Marianne Perez, who won her race out in Pasadena in District 144. The community can work together in the end. You know, I think if everybody has that in mind, that, you know, yes, some good competition is always good. Let's not go crazy and, you know, take down people, you know, on the personal side or whatever. Let's run some good ground campaigns, grassroots. If you have the money to run media or whatever, you know, that's the resource that you have. But ultimately, there's always the next election, the next great leader, you know, like Juliet or Marianne, that everybody can come together for, you know, and I foresee that happening. And really, it has to happen. It must happen because the way our numbers are working right now, in uniting to support candidates, to unite with coalitions to elect candidates nationally, in this race, it needs to happen too.
Well, on that note, I think we can go on to the next topic. I was once told early on in my LULAC days that in politics, your best friends will one day become your worst enemies, and your worst enemies may one day become your best friends. At the end of the day, it's just whatever the issue is, and we got to keep going forward, right? So I think that's just politics. So we'll see how this thing turns out. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back and get into recapping the election, going detail by detail to see what everybody thinks about what happened and why this ended up being, a Democratic win. We'll be right back. You're watching Latino Talk TV. Good evening. You're watching Latino Talk TV. Thanks you for joining us once again. And now we're going to get into recapping the election. We're going to go straight into the meat and potatoes of the show. The federal election, the presidential election. Obama won. Why? Anybody?
Well, clearly, I mean, you look at the demographics. I mean, you see that 93% of African Americans voted for Obama, 73% of Asians, 71% of Latinos, 54% of women, and 60% of people ages 18 to 29. So, I mean, clearly, demographically, he reached out to the individuals that he considered his base or individuals that he could capitalize on. And you look at the election, also, you see where in 2008, white Americans voted at 76%, and I think that dropped to 72% this election cycle. So, you know, you see a changing of the guard, if you will, in the voting cycle, in the demographics.
And I think ultimately it came down to who voters had more confidence in. Toward the end, some people blame Tropical Storm Sandy and all these other things, but ultimately it was about the campaigns. I think Obama ran a very good campaign. I don't think Romney ran the campaign that he should have. He was trying to rehash a lot of the same issues from before. As far as the Latino vote is concerned, as you mentioned, 71%, I believe, voted for Obama. Does that make the Latino community a strong Democratic base? You know, we'll see. I think a lot of it will be determined by the actions. You know, what President Obama and the Congress do with this victory.
I think for me, I'm definitely probably the less informed voter on this panel. And for me, the one issue that won me over for Obama was immigration. And that's probably the one thing that did. And to against Romney, probably the 47 million comment was probably what didn't want me to vote for him.
The 47%ers, huh?
47%.
Well, I'll tell you what, Obama, I mean, it wasn't even close, if you ask me. He had plenty of electoral votes. I was expecting right down to the wire, like at midnight or 1 a.m. in the morning, that we'd be looking and they'd be head-to-head. It didn't happen. Even without Florida, I mean, it was a landslide. It sent a strong message. Latinos voted 64% for Obama last election. And this election, 71%. So obviously, Obama increased his numbers. Why? Well, there's one example right there, the immigration issue, the DREAM Act, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of interesting to see what the Republican Party is going to do now. Are they going to try to move more to the center, or are they going to stay right where they're at, which is the extreme right, if you ask me?
Well, I personally think that the Republicans need to become moderates again. That's how they won in the first place. That's how they got into power. But then this extreme sect that's taken over is just destroying the party from within. I mean, President Reagan wasn't an extremist. He was a moderate.
Yeah. Well, I thought, I know people have been throwing out the term mandate here and there, but I personally believe it was a mandate to Congress more so than anybody else, because I believe that the American people stated that we're going to give Obama another opportunity to see what he's all about, but we're also putting Congress on notice that, hey, listen, we realize the problem is you. Thus, you see the GOP lost several seats in the House and, of course, 3 seats in the Senate. So I believe that the mandate was really towards Congress to say, you guys need to work with this Democratic president. We're going to give him another chance. And the GOP, Romney, they did a great job of alienating so many people, so many people. The women, I mean, you got candidates out here, you know, talking about rape and legitimate rape and all these different things about rape. And I think they did an awful job of injecting something that really wasn't. The economy was the big factor in this election. And to inject things that had nothing to do with the economy, kind of insert foot and mouth, I think was just a tremendous mistake. I mean, they alienated the 47%, like you mentioned. So many people were alienated. You know, President Obama is the welfare president. I mean, just so many attacks that I think a lot of voters were like, you know, the voter ID, suppressionary tactics. There was so many things. I think people just were motivated.
Okay, and on that note, we're actually going to open up the phone lines because we don't want to alienate you watching the show. Our number is 281-846-5079, and we actually have our first caller calling in, Mr. Chris Carmona. Chris, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, Chris Carmona, thanks for joining us, man. What's going on?
Not much. Still trying to take a vacation.
Okay, well, we're going to take off the vacation right now because we got you live on the air here with the guests. We've got Stace Medellin and Jeffrey Boney and Ben and Rob, and we want to hear your opinion on what you thought about the elections.
Well, it was a bad battle.
Yep.
It was a disappointing turnout, disappointing results. You know, from the Republican point of view, we think we could have done a lot better than what we did. We know what we need to work on going forward, not only to save the county, but save the state. You know, there's a lot of concern right now that the Texas will be turning purple in the next 4 to 6 years if we can't get our message effectively across to a broader group of people.
So what's the message that the people need to understand about the Republican Party that wasn't brought out to the table?
Well, I think the thing is not that wasn't understood. I think there's just too much negative attention brought on some things. Some people say it's the social issues, but a lot of things, you know, we talk about the Hispanic outreach is the immigration issue. You know, I don't know how much more we could have done in terms of as a party at the state level to show that we're not a party of people trying to deport everybody. We're not trying to get rid of people. We're not trying to send everybody back. You have a couple of extremist groups that support that position, but as a party, that is not the position, and we proved that back in June at the state convention when we did the implementation of the guest worker program, the Texas solution, into the party platform. And I think we could have done a better job as a party pushing that into media. You know, there was slight media coverage on it, but not nearly as it should have been to really get people to understand that that is not the party's position, hasn't been, won't be. George Bush got that. We've carried that message forward. You know, there's a lot of undocumented workers in the state, in this state, and we want them to be integrated in a beneficial manner. And we just need to do a better job of spreading that message and stop letting the media or the Democrats control the conversation with falsehoods about what our position is.
Hey, Chris, why don't you tell the viewers your intentions? I know you're going to be running for a position on city council. Is that correct?
Hello?
Are you going to be running for city council?
Yes, I will be running for city council next year. You know, the thing with the city election as opposed to state elections, county elections, is that it's a nonpartisan race, which to me is beneficial in a way because there are some issues that doesn't matter whether you're red, blue, green, or independent. It resonates with every citizen of the city of Houston. There's a lot of issues that don't see color, don't see gender, don't see sexual preference. There's a lot of things that are broken in the city, and they need to be corrected. But, you know, I don't really want to make this about myself and as a candidate next year, you know.
We'll let you get back to your party.
Well, you got some good background music there, Chris.
Yeah, we'll let you get back to your party.
Chris, yeah, there's one more question. Hold on, don't hang up yet.
I had a question for you. This is Jeff Boney. My question is, what you mentioned. You mentioned that the Democrats did a better job of defining what the GOP was all about. What actually is the GOP about, and how did the Democrats actually guide people, as if you will, about what you all are about?
Well, I think in terms of negativity, two of the biggest things, again, was one of them was the immigration, or the party's stance on immigration, and I think another one was position on abortion. You know, I've always told people, if you're a single-issue voter, it's very hard to get you to understand that party, the future, ideals, values, and platforms, how to sell those. You know, if you're a single-issue voter, no matter what anybody says, and that's either side, no matter what anybody says about any other issue out there, your mind's going to be made up. And so that's the hardest part, is attaching yourself to those single-issue voters and giving them a message they can relate to kind of take them away from the single issue. And when you have some people spouting off about abortion, that, you know, rapism isn't bad and it could be good for you, or that was God's will for you to be raped, things like that, that doesn't resonate with the mainstream populace, and it doesn't resonate with the main core base of the Republican Party. You know, if people think that the Republican Party was anti-abortion under any circumstances, and that wasn't the case. You know, we made it very clear that there was exceptions for the pro-life point of view. Rape, incest, and life over life. You should never, you know, we have those exceptions out there. And when I talk to people about that, you know, you can see that I didn't know that, because it's not a message that you hear in the media. What you hear in the media is that, oh, the Republicans think that whether you're raped or not, you still need to carry that base for full term. But that's not the message.
But there was
I think we need to do a better job of fighting back when we have extremists or just comical people speaking to the media with items like that. We need to do a better job as a party in coming out saying, no, these people are wrong. We don't say about their statements. They're a limited, small group of people. This is what we're really about. And I think we failed to do that.
Okay.
Right. I was going to say, I don't think that was the Democrats doing that to the GOP. I think the GOP did it to themselves, because Romney and several other individuals didn't come out adamantly and say, this is not what we believe, this is what we believe. There was a lot of flip-flopping going on, if you will, etch-a-sketch, as they called it.
Well,
I see what you're saying on that, and to a certain extent, you're correct about that, and that's why I said we didn't do a good enough job, or the best job we could have, in defending those points and attacking the individuals who would make those off-the-cuff remarks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can all agree that the media hasn't been favorable to the Republican Party this election cycle. And I think when you have miscues, gas played over and over again, on one party over another, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
But then when you do have somebody that comes out and speaks about it and demonizes that speaker or criticizes them, some of them within the party, you may get that carried on one station, one outlet, but you don't get that same coverage that it was covered for the first time for the guy making the remark. And I think when the Democrats do that, you know, to say that the media isn't democratically biased would be an incorrect statement.
well, I think
thank God
all
for Fox
media.
News, right?
I'm glad we have Fox News and all the other bloggers out there. But hey, Chris, I appreciate the call in. I really do. And you have fun.
Anytime, guys. I wish I was that person.
Yeah, us too, man. Talk to you soon. Well, when you get back in town, come visit us.
All right, have a good day.
All right, bye.
Well, I listen to Univision. I don't know about you guys.
Every day, man, every day.
Okay. We need to start having the show in Spanish to see what people say. You watch in Spanish or not? You know? So let's talk about that real quick on the media side of things. You know, people keep saying, I think they had the same conversation when the Republicans won last time, that they were blaming the media against the Democrats. Isn't that the same conversation that usually happens?
I mean, you can't either defend or go along with whatever their extremists are saying. You know, they don't like you mentioned. There wasn't any. Actually, there was probably more defense of those people, and that really stated what the Republicans were about. I mean, ultimately, you know, as far as in the Latino community, when you look at the polling that just came out from Latino Decisions, very respected, the top 4 issues for Latinos were economy and jobs, immigration, education, and healthcare. the social issues that Republicans like to push, and for the most part, it's abortion and gay marriage. Even in those issues, Latinos are pretty much 50-50 right now. And everything else, when they asked Latinos who was going to be doing a better job for you on the economy, they picked Obama. On immigration, they picked Obama. On immigration, they even said, that Romney was really far away from how they felt. So it's not the media pushing that. That's how Latinos are feeling right now. Ultimately, it's about what actions their elected officials are going to take and how they're going to respond to that in 2 years and 4 years.
I mean, I guess on a moderate point of view, yes, it all depends on the issue, and I don't vote straight ticket either party. Mm-hmm. When you really look at it, it's like, okay, the main issues on the Republican side have been what I've seen. I guess the media is sold is run out the immigrants. This is our country. We got to take our country back. It's like, what's this our country stuff? It's all of our countries, and we're taking it back from where? We're the ones that put the country in the situation it's in today. We elected them. We are the people. So who are we taking it back from? From ourselves?
I just don't see at all how anyone on the Republican side can say that there was just this tremendous media bias against them, as opposed to, I think it was extremely neutral. I think that there was so much, against Obama. I mean, the media was against Obama in a lot of areas. I mean, you talk about this Benghazi stuff that's just going on and on and on.
I agree. I noticed a lot, especially toward the end. There was challenges of the polling that was coming.
Yeah.
There was the whole Benghazi thing, and it's almost like the media either saw it coming, that Obama was going to win, and they needed more of more money and more news to put out there. So the media also creates a lot of this so they can keep going. I mean, I remember when Rick Perry was running for president, the Texas media especially, exactly. But don't tell the Texas media that, because Rick Perry was going to call a press conference for something, and everybody's flocking to him because they were just enamored with him for some reason, because he's the governor of Texas, I guess. But the media controls a lot of this, whether it's a real competition that they want to portray to the people or not. And I saw it on the most liberal ones, like MSNBC, they call them liberal, and on CNN also. Fox News, well, they're Fox News.
I mean, the Democrats didn't make Todd Akin make his comment about legitimate rape. The Democrats didn't make Richard Murdoch say his comments about rape being the will of God. The Democrats didn't make Mitt Romney say that, you got the 47% of folks over here. I mean, this was all...
Why are you looking at me?
Yeah.
You are the 47%.
I'm your friend.
Well,
we have the same barber. Come on.
You're the 1%er, man.
He's definitely
1%. 53% now.
He's 1%, But I'm just saying, I think
he's the one that took the video.
I think it's just a little. I think it's just a little bit of sour grapes to say, oh, it's the. You're always looking for someone to blame, when you lose. I mean, how about looking internally and saying, this is where we screwed up. This is where we fell short, and analyzing yourself and saying, this is where we fell short and we need to correct it, and just leave it at that. But blaming Obama, what did Karl Rove said that Obama suppressed the vote.
Didn't he lose it on? He lost it on Fox News. Or like, seriously, this is your station. I mean, you made this station.
Let me change the conversation a little bit, because the way I look at it is, Ted Cruz, far right conservative, got 75% of the Latino vote.
No.
What percentage was it?
The poll that just came out from, again, Latino Decisions, was that he only got 35% of the Latino vote here in Texas, and 65% went to Sadler. And when you look at the state poll on Obama, it was 70% for Obama and 30% for Romney. Somewhere in there were 5% of Latinos who supported Cruz for whatever reason.
The name.
Either the name. I mean, I don't want to insult people that, if they did support his issues or whatever. That's fine. You respect that. But either the name, or maybe because it was a historic first, that he was going to be the first Latino senator from Texas. But I haven't seen what the Harris County numbers are yet, because I just got the spreadsheet today. and I'm interested to see what it was. Something tells me it might have been closer here. Harris County usually isn't as polarized, I guess, or to a certain extent on when a Latino's on the ballot.
Well, let's just be honest about how people actually vote. I mean, people vote based on the name. There are a lot of people who still, to this day, say, "Oh, that sounds like a Hispanic name. Let's vote for him." You know?
And I think Cruz actually saw that, that he wasn't gaining a lot of traction with Latinos. If you saw his advertising in the last 2 weeks, that's when he really started advertising, in the last 2 weeks of the election season. And it was very positive, very, gave you the warm and fuzzy feelings, and how his dad escaped from Cuba and that whole story.
But that rule doesn't apply, so that's wet foot, dry foot for them.
Oh, I know.
What about for the Mexicans?
And even more so, his dad escaped from Batista, not from Castro. So, and he actually
And he worked for
with
Castro.
I mean, is that something? Democrats didn't have the money for that type of media to put out there, and in fact, Romney ran an ad in Miami and in Florida, tying Obama to Che Guevara, to Castro, and to Hugo Chavez, because Hugo Chavez in some interview had said that he would support Obama. And so Romney ran and spent a lot of money on this ad, and the numbers came out from Florida today. I think it was 49% of Cuban Americans supported Obama, 47% for Romney. So they didn't even gain traction there. As much as a lot of the Cubano-Americanos hate Castro and Chavez along with that, non-Latino or non-Cuban Latinos went I think over 60% for Obama in Florida. So, and that just shows there's a big disconnect, I guess, with a lot of the Republicans and how they campaign for the Latino vote. A lot of it is media-oriented. It's not outreach-oriented on the grassroots at all. The issues show that they're not anywhere close to how Latinos feel based on the polling that's out there. Maybe some going moderate on the issues will help that. That's what helped. Is like we were talking about earlier, that the best indicator for a Republican is if they get 35 or 40% of the Latino vote, and to win. And so if they, and I think that's where they need to moderate their stances to come to get back to that point again, where they can win.
Well, let's get back to recapping the races real quick. What else? What at the Senate level? Any major changes out there other than?
Well, Davis.
Ted Cruz.
Was it Wendy Davis?
Wendy Davis.
Wendy Davis won her race in Dallas, Fort Worth area, which was a tight race. By the way, everybody was watching that race, especially the governor's office, because that race was going to dictate what happened here in Houston.
That's the state Senate.
That's correct. Because, as you know, the Republican Party had a super majority. And what was it? How many senators did they have? Was it 20?
In order to put legislation on the floor, they need to have at least, I believe they have to get to 20 votes. And so if Democrats had 12 votes, that would always stop that super majority from allowing that. Of course, the untimely passing of Senator Gallegos affected this, and defeating Wendy Davis would have basically given them carte blanche to pass legislation without much debate.
So for the viewers' sake, there's 30 senators, and if they had 20 senators that were Republican, the Republicans could have done anything they wanted for this session. But because they did not make the 20, well, actually they had 18. They were hoping to get 19 in Fort Worth and then 20 with this seat, but that's not going to happen anymore. So the super majority is not possible for the Republicans for this session.
And instead of going by numbers, they have to have 2/3, I guess, a 2/3 majority in order to put legislation for a vote on the floor of the Senate.
Let me ask you guys this question. Do you believe that whoever supports and institute or helps to bring forth immigration reform in a positive way, will there be tremendous loyalty from the Latino community for years to come, or will it just be on a case-by-case basis?
I think yes.
In my opinion, yes. Yeah, I mean, you look at Sheila Jackson Lee, who has been a fighter. Congressman Gene Green's been a fighter. Al Green's been a fighter. They have earned the allegiance, if you will, of the Hispanic constituents in their districts. Now, how long that will last, I don't know.
But I mean, man, the Republican Party had the Latino vote. If you look back in the amnesty of '86, the majority of people would have voted Republican. All they had to do was ride that horse every election and not become the enemy of immigration.
Oh, and that's why, and when George W. Bush was elected and then reelected, especially his reelection, I believe he got 40% of the vote. And is that I tend to argue a little bit differently that Latinos aren't a single issue community, and again, based on the other issues on that polling, I'm stuck with polling because I'm fascinated by it. For one, just numbers, about how the community feels. Immigration falls from second to third or fourth, depending on how hot the issue gets. And usually, when it gets heated, it's when Republicans are bringing it up and being negative, and then it becomes a major issue for Latinos. When the heat's off, then education, healthcare, and especially during the Obamacare debate, that was elevated even more for Latinos. So will immigration, I think Latinos will have a sense of relief if comprehensive immigration reform or some sensible immigration reform is passed, because it seems that for Republicans, they use the immigration issue as a means to argue voter ID, to argue English only, issues that affect Latino U.S. citizens, and and Latino U.S. citizens are the ones that are voting. That offends a lot of Latinos, and they respond at the ballot box.
Well, we have several different types of Latinos these days, because the educated, quote unquote, college educated, financially appear to be successful, they're becoming Republicans. It doesn't matter about immigration, because by that time, many of them are like, well, my family's already here. What do I care? And it's like, so I'm going to become a Republican because of that situation. Then you also have the ones that are financially successful and still care and do want to keep those doors open. And I deal with people almost on a daily basis. They're like, they are immigrants. They did the amnesty, or they had whatever reason they got here and they did what they had to do. Now they're citizens. They're like, they need to wait in line too. So if it wasn't for that situation, it's tough.
And that's what's so important about a sensible immigration reform, because we get into debates over the DREAM Act, which is a great thing, but it doesn't fix the system. And those that say that, they need to get in the back of the line, well, the back of the line doesn't move. It doesn't move forward at this point, and that affects millions more people. And that
does move if you have a high level education. There's $20 million of high tech, 20 million high tech jobs that are open that cannot be filled in this country. We're having to import people to come work here in the United States because we cannot produce enough educated employees here in this country.
And the reason why I ask is because I look at the subconscious long-term effects of blacks voting for Democrats, whereas blacks traditionally were Republican in their voting prior to the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act 64-65 being passed. It wasn't until Lyndon B. Johnson actually, by way of Kennedy, implemented that blacks shifted heavily to the Democratic Party and have been loyal, if you will, since with their votes. Because they believe on a social issue standpoint that the Democratic Party somehow supports them and is there for them, or was there for them in a tough, difficult situation. And so that's why I was.
So I want to do this, if you don't mind. Let's take a quick break, and I really think we need to chime in on the social issues and also the economic issues of what we're talking about there. If you guys don't mind, we'll take a quick break. Okay, you're watching Latino Talk TV. We'll be right back. We're going to go straight into the social issues and the impact of the parties. You're watching Latino Talk TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Latino Talk TV. We're here at Houston Media Source, where we're just talking about the commitment of the African American community to the Democratic Party because of the social issues. You want to recap that real quick?
Well, what I was just basically asking was, how do you believe immigration reform, if they pass it, is going to play as it relates to the loyalty of the Latino vote for years to come. Do you believe that the Latinos will continue to be loyal to whatever party champions immigration reform for years to come, like the African American community has seemingly done with Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act?
I think it plays a big factor. You know, when you think of immigrant, people have the misconception that we're talking about someone that doesn't have an education, someone that is an older individual. But the reality is there's a lot of individuals that are in school right now, college, that are professionals. And I tell you what, anybody that gives them an opportunity to become a citizen or a legal resident where they're able to work here, they're going to have a voter there for a long period of time if they are able to vote. Now, most of these individuals will never be able to vote because they will not become citizens.
Mm-hmm. My point, I had something to say about this, the programs, you know, because one of the biggest issues out there is the so-called entitlement programs that are out there for the community. And I was taught that if you didn't earn it, you ain't getting it. So at what point are we going to stop or put some more compliance or some limitations to all these free programs that are out there?
What programs are you
So like, hey, let's talk about unemployment. You get to sit around for how many weeks and not do anything? You get no work out of them? What happened to the New Deal back in the day where you actually performed some work and actually got something out of the individual?
Well, from what I mean, have always, when I was employed by someone, I paid into the system.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you get to sleep and for the next 4 or 5 weeks and do nothing.
Well, I mean,
if we were all stuck on a desert island right now.
Oh, we didn't even introduce you. I'm sorry. Mr. Dr. Ray Guerra joining us. Thank you so much, sir.
Candidate
For we'll talk about that in a little bit.
He hasn't filed his paperwork yet.
I'd like to make an analogy to your point. If we're all stuck on a desert island right now, and we're just here, how many of us are? 6 of us, and you fall and break your leg, you are contributing 1/6 to the island economy, to the island food. So it behooves us to take care of you, to nurse you back to health, so we all do better, right? And so if you just translate that out into over to the city, over the state, to the country, it makes sense. Theoretically, it makes sense to take care of people once they fall on bad luck. Now, is the welfare system the way it's set up right now perfect? Absolutely not. There needs to be reform there. But do we need reform? Do we need a welfare system? Does society benefit from having a welfare system? Absolutely. I don't see how you can make the case that it wouldn't benefit.
And there's a difference between welfare and unemployment. I mean, let's make the distinction. I mean, welfare is not the same as drawing unemployment.
I meant by safety net.
No, I know. I'm
Safety
saying,
net,
I'm just for his question.
So how is it not? You're still getting paid.
Well, but then the Republican response to Ray's analogy would be that for the 5 of us to survive, we can just cook you and eat you and
that's right,
and survive on you.
There are no Republicans here yet. You can chime in and call in. You can defend yourself now.
Because with unemployment, to answer your question, you actually, as an employee, you pay into the system, and so you're drawing off of money that you actually have paid into the system. Welfare is you're getting dollars or getting benefits directly from the government that you didn't have to do anything to pay into the system or earn. So there is a distinction there as to what unemployment. I don't see that there are a lot of people that are just laying up watching, Jerry Springer or whatever the new thing is now. I don't know, what is it, Maury Povich? There may very well be, but I'm saying, I just want to say that there's a difference between drawing welfare and drawing unemployment. There are a lot of people that are out here going to work, looking for work.
And I think if you want to look at it like from a cold psychological point of view, we are reinforcing that behavior. If that is going on where you are just lying at home and getting paid for it or getting something out of that, then you are kind of reinforcing that kind of behavior somehow.
Dr. Feelgood speaks.
It's true. We all know
I
people
remember
abuse
what my dad told me one time when he had worked all his life. He was a small business owner. He served 12 years in the National Guard. He was your ultimate Mexican American trabajador. And but at some point he became disabled. He couldn't work anymore, and he was still young. He was in his 50s at the time. But he had to sign up for food stamps to survive. Yeah, he had done the right thing. He had paid for his house and everything, but he couldn't pay for my college education, But he's like, for 30, 40 years that I've worked, I've paid into the system. You know what? If you have to be on financial aid, I feel like I paid. I'm not going to feel any shame over it. You know, whether it's the food stamps that he and my mom were getting, or whether it was any other assistance that they got. He felt he had paid into the system. At the same time, you know, you can mention others that aren't paying into the system like they should or whatever. Ultimately, I think people, you know, we're a country that still helps people get, you know, with a hand up. You know, I think we still need to be that kind of country. At the same time, I'm not saying reform is bad either. You know, like you mentioned, the New Deal era where people were working at the time. You know, and I've had family members from that era that would tell us about that, and those were excellent programs. Try to get it passed, something like that passed in the Congress now, whether it was the American Jobs Act or anything like that, that was basically going to be something like that with more of a livable wage for employees to fix bridges and roads and things like that. But
and I
people
think
voted
that's
against it.
stories like that is also what's going to connect with people as well, because there are stories like that where people actually do need help, you know. And that's why I mentioned from a cold psychological point of view, you can look at it that way. But we aren't coldly just making these decisions. We are taking into consideration stories like that. Single moms with kids that can't support their families, that don't have papers or something, and that are getting some kind of benefit and feeding kids that otherwise couldn't be.
Can I just make this one
Go
last
ahead.
point?
Go
I think
ahead.
my biggest issue is you hear people talk about cutting entitlements. I do believe that there's some reforms that need to be done.
I agree with
But
you.
when you talk about the fact that you got farm subsidies and all these other subsidies out there for
Oil
individuals,
subsidy.
and you
Entitlements
have
also.
outlandish defense contracts out there and money wasted where you had all these stealth bomber planes and corporate welfare. Nobody attacks that. Nobody
Well, let's
really,
attack them now.
Nobody talks about that as much as they talk about the small sliver of people that are on welfare. Even if there is some waste, it's nothing compared to building or seeking to build a virtual wall on the border that never got completed, and $20 billion later, they say, oh, we're scrapping it. Well, who made all that money? And what happened to it? You know, when you're talking about $2-3 billion on welfare compared to $20 to $60 billion worth of waste in government spending on defense contracts and subsidies, I mean, I think that we have our priorities mixed up.
Jeff, I think you need to run for mayor.
Jeffrey Boney from Mayor, you heard it here first. Heard it here
I'm
first.
going to be his chief of staff.
Dr. Guerra.
Oh, you know, Stace is considering running for Senate.
Okay.
SD6.
No, I live in SD13. Thank you.
Yeah, I personally think that there needs to be, I'm a big pusher for compliance and compliance reform and evaluation of what and how the money is being spent. Because, yes, do we have places where money is just oozing out? Absolutely. I think it's at every level, not just here. And do I believe in programs that support families? Absolutely. I think we need to have and continue to support programs like welfare and unemployment and things like that. But we also need to increase the way we monitor it. Because right now, when we look at the CHIP and Medicaid programs and all those dental issues, those dentists that were finally getting closed. People were getting free medical or free dental services when they didn't even need it, you know? So because we didn't have enough people monitoring and inspecting what was really going on.
And let me just say, with respect to the Latino community, Latinos, whether you're immigrant or non-immigrant, pay much more into the safety net system than they pull out, right? And so we get the criticism of using we're taking away from the government, but we put so much into the system. The Social Security would be insolvent if it weren't for the Latino community, right? So,
But isn't that the entire community? Everyone who works, isn't that the case for everybody? I mean, everybody pays into it.
If you pay taxes.
Everyone who's...
But I would argue as a percentage that Latinos put more into it than they take out than any other community.
Well, you got to remember, there's a lot of people that have fake Social Security numbers and they never file their taxes, so the government keeps that money there. Yeah. But we need to talk about another topic altogether.
We got 10 minutes left.
Because we're running out of time here.
Wow.
But I will tell you that I'm very, very happy to see Sheriff Adrian Garcia win the election. We talked about a close race. As we all know, the Republicans had to cross over a small percentage of them in order for Adrian to win. And that's exactly what happened. And he made it happen. His crossover appeal worked for him.
So if you know who Sheriff Adrian Garcia is here in Harris County, if you can, congratulate him. If you don't like him, congratulate him anyways, because he won. You know, I think he was the #1 vote getter out there.
Yeah, 611,000 votes.
You know, that alone was tremendous.
Yes.
So we'll see what's the next stage. Any comments on his election? I know you and I had a nice discussion about that last time.
I have a comment. I think that the alternative to Adrian Garcia was awful. So, but I think now that he is in office, and I think Stace makes a great point on his famous blog Dos Centavos, that we I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from my perspective, we need to sort of hold him accountable to the issues as well when it comes to our community. And if you look at the numbers, we was crunching some numbers earlier. If Sheriff Garcia gets the same Latino vote percentage that now Senator Cruz got, he loses the election, right? And so Sheriff Garcia absolutely needs the Latino vote to get elected, to push him over. And so even if he gets 50%, it's gonna be a nail biter if he just gets 50% of the Latino vote. So he's got to pay attention and continue to pay attention to the issues that are important to the Latino community.
Okay.
Well, you know, you bring up a good point, because if you look at the numbers, you'll find that he has a lot of African American support, big time. And we know that amongst Democrats, the African Americans make a big block of those voters. And so if he continues to run as a Democrat, he also has to make sure he reaches out to the African American community. But let's talk about another race. If he chooses to run for mayor, which is a rumor down the road, I guarantee you he is going to be a major player, a major candidate. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Adrian Garcia be the first mayor of Houston.
Hispanic mayor.
Hispanic mayor.
Well, you know, we also got to acknowledge something. He's proven himself to lead a fiscally conservative organization. He cut over $50-something million out of his operating expense out of the sheriff's office. So
And I wouldn't call it fiscally conservative as much as just good management.
It is fiscally conservative, because the previous sheriff didn't do it. It was $50 million budget.
Yeah, they were wasting a lot of money on overtime and things like that. That might have angered a lot of the deputies. But if you want to run a good, sleek organization and really concentrate on law enforcement, then you run it like Sheriff Garcia has. And ultimately, I think that's what got him that crossover appeal that you mentioned, because a lot of what the area that most of the area that he serves is unincorporated. So you're talking about Northwest, the North Harris County, Northeast Harris County, Kingwood area. You're talking about Republican strongholds. So if he's able to get a 5-10% uptick in those areas versus what Obama got or what other Democrats got, that says a lot about him. That people respected his work. I mean, I go up to visit my sister up in the Cy-Fair area, and I like to see his signs in the neighborhoods, that they monitor those neighborhoods, and his name's right there. And whether 60 or 70% of those people may not vote for him or not, he's there, and he's doing a good job in the process.
You know, I haven't even heard anybody mention about how Obama won by just 2 votes in the Harris County. I mean, to anybody that says
that actually went up now, because I think there was 9 boxes left to count at the end of the night, and they had to wait till the next morning. Obama right now ended up winning by 585 votes. But that 2-vote margin was really...
Regardless, though, to anybody who says that your vote doesn't count,
No,
I was almost not going to vote because... What? I almost did not vote because...
No.
Time to go. Close the court. I'm under the automatic renewal with the state, and they still had me under my old address in Cypress. And I was like, oh, man, I got to go to Cypress now? So I had to drive all the way out to Cypress.
Let's go on to the next topic.
They kicked out the show. I wasn't going to vote. What?
We're over here preaching.
But we were talking about last week about email voting or alternative ways to vote. I mean, I still had to drive all the way out there, and that would have turned off any other voter.
Have you heard of early vote?
I did.
Yeah. Well, I think that Adrian, hard-fought victory, well-deserved.
Yes, completely agree. All right, so we got 3 minutes on the show. We need to recap and cover something. One more time.
Bond elections.
The bond elections. All right.
They all passed. Every one of them.
All of them but one is a good thing.
Which one are you talking about?
I was against the Metro bond election because now, with it passing, light rail projects are going to be pretty much dead. And I think it's a bad thing.
Yeah,
Well,
but
see, Gilbert Garcia, the chairman, had said that it really wasn't going to affect that. If anything, the bond passing, or not the bond, but the referendum passing, was going to, first of all, pay down the short-term debt for Metro and provide more bus service and more shelters to increase ridership. And basically, by paying down the debt, the credit rating goes up. You can get the financing to build more rail in the future. It was hard for me to believe that basically taking away money from the communities that the buses are messing up, basically by driving over the streets. I know I live in Southwest Houston; the streets are messed up, but that it needed to pass. I ended up voting for it. It was a big battle for me, though.
I still think it was a mistake for us to have passed it because now there's no more money to build future light rails, and the more buses we put on the streets, the more pollution and the more road work we're going to have to keep doing. We're pretty much, until some more money comes down, we're not going to have any more light rail projects happening.
well, just to recap, because we're fixing to get off the air. All the bond elections passed, which means more construction work out there. More people are going to have jobs. Economic stimulus for the city. So it's nothing but positive.
I think that the only thing that I would encourage individuals as an advocate for small businesses is to hold these individuals accountable to make sure that they do exactly what they say they're going to do with the money in a timely fashion and not draw it out, 5-10 years down the line and then ask for another $100 million or whatever the case may be.
And our tax bills will go up, so just pay attention to that.
It's an investment.
Yes. All right, anything else before we close? All right, well, thank you so much for watching tonight. You are watching Latino Talk TV. We are here at Houston Media Source. Join us again next Monday night. We will be here live on our new season. Today's actually the last day of our season today. Next week, we start up a brand new season. Hopefully, we'll have a brand new set. We'll see how it goes. So you're watching Latino Talk TV. Have a great night.